people with real jobs.
Hello?
Self-employed people. Which do you want to be? This is Certifiably Unemployable. It's time to fire the boss and become self-employed. Maybe you need a push to get that business or side gig going that you've been dreaming about for years. And if you're an entrepreneur, you can listen to stories and get experience from people who've done it. Get ready to change your life. Broadcasting from the compound, this is Certifiably Unemployable, and this is Sean Dean.
Welcome to Certifiably Unemployable, and I'm your host, Sean Dean, and thank you for, once again, being a part of your busy day as an entrepreneur. There's always things going on. Maybe you're looking to start a business. Maybe you've got a business and you need a little tweaking, and sometimes we just need to step back and allow other people to give us a little advice and to give us a little words of encouragement, and that's what Certifiably Unemployable is all about. So I hope this week is going to be no different, because this topic is called Take a Break Before You Break. And I've got a very special guest, Reverend Jack Pladdys, Master of Divinity. He's also lead pastor of the Palm Coast Bible Church in Palm Coast, Florida. Jack, I've known you and your family a couple of years, and I'm super excited to bring you on Certifiably Unemployable, because I know you have a lot of wisdom to give to the listeners, and I'm looking forward to it myself, because I love learning new things. So welcome to Certifiably Unemployable.
Hey, thanks, Sean. I am so glad to be able to be with you, and thank you for the invitation. It's a great thing. However, here's one thing I want to do. I want to start off by breaking some ice here, because here you are, a business podcast, right? And you're talking to entrepreneurs, you're talking to people who are really fighting hard in what my industry might call the real world, right? Because here you are, you have a real job, and I'm just a pastor. So I sit at my desk and I watch my Bible float above my desk, right? That's what people think. So let's break some ice there. Pastors are into this entrepreneurship just as much as anybody else is, because we fight daily to maintain the numbers that are necessary to maintain in order to keep the company going, or in our organization to keep our congregation going. We're constantly innovating, trying to find new ways of being relevant and to market to people. We don't call it marketing, but that's really what it is. We call it outreach, but there's also that marketing. So as I sit here and talk, I don't talk just as this guy who, sits on, a mountaintop and prays that God will provide money. I mean, that's not the way it works for pastors. I'm going to share things with you because this is true about most leaders, most business entrepreneurs, most anybody who is in business, that we are all fighting for the same thing. Just my business happens to have a sacred component to it. That would be the only difference.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Just like being in business, just like when you start a new business, what it looks like today is a different picture 5 years from now. That's no different than the church that you're at, the church we grew up at. I mean, religion itself has changed dramatically over the years.
Yeah, so much. But isn't that true? The 5-year picture, I mean, we almost can't do that anymore, can we? In this time of COVID, we had a 5-year plan, and then COVID hit. And there is no more 5-year plan. Now I'm hoping to get to next year at this point. So yeah.
Right. No, so I agree. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching this on Facebook, please give us a comment. Let us know what resonates with you, and also maybe share some of your experiences as Jack is talking about the subject title, Take a Break Before You Break. And also we want you to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and we do appreciate your support. So Jack, let's get underway now that the ice has been broken, my friend.
All right, let's do this. This is great. Hey, so the other thing I do is I'm getting my PhD in organizational leadership. So I've been able to study what it means to be a leader, what it means to have an organization that's functioning properly, and entrepreneurship, innovation, change management. Those are all very big things within my academic career, if you will. And so I'm excited to talk to you about this idea of what it means to be an entrepreneur and take a break, right? Because let's be honest, and let me first say entrepreneurs are heroes. They are the ones that are pushing our economy forward. They're the ones that are innovating. They're helping us to come to a new level of something. If it weren't for entrepreneurs, we we would never move past a hole in the ground for a toilet if it weren't for an entrepreneur.
Right.
And so I am so grateful for them. But having said that, here's the other thing, and Sean, maybe, give me some advice on this as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are a little crazy. I mean, would you agree with that? Would you agree with that, Sean?
Yeah, we 100% are risk takers. A lot of times we don't think through the process. We just dive in, all feet ahead, and that's how it's always been, and that's why a true successful business person fails, and that's just part of it. So I agree with that. We are a little crazy.
Right. And crazy in the most affectionate way of saying that word. I'm not talking like certifiably crazy. I mean, but you know what I'm saying here. So because that you just jump into things, and there's something there that that is built into that, and that's that passion to do something and to always be moving. And that's probably one of the things about entrepreneurs that is most devastating, or that I think entrepreneurs need to look at closely. And that is that most entrepreneurs have ingrained in them the inability to stop thinking. And because you're constantly wanting to do what's next, you're constantly trying to figure out that next step. I'll tell you just my experience as a pastor of a congregation that had 15 people in it, and I had to figure out how to grow that congregation. And now as a pastor of a mid-sized congregation, we don't stop thinking. I don't leave my work in the office. I come home and I'm still thinking about what I'm supposed to be able to do next. I'm still thinking about how do I reach that next generation? How do I reach the people who I haven't reached yet? We have a phrase in our congregation that we want to reach the people that nobody else is reaching. That's what entrepreneurs are doing. They're trying to reach a market that nobody else is reaching. They're trying to innovate into that market. And so this constant thinking that happens is taxing on your brain, and it's taxing on my brain, and it's taxing on us as individuals. And our health starts to decline. I mean, all the studies out there will tell you 1 in 4 entrepreneurs are going to stop their jobs within 3 years. They're going to stop innovating within 3 years, and they're going to burn out, and they're going to do something else, and it's not going to be innovative. They're going to go right back into that traditional work environment. And I don't want to see that happen, because I think we need more entrepreneurs. I think we need more innovators. I think we are experiencing an incredible time right now where if we don't see creative, important, cutting edge stuff, we're not going to survive. This economy is not going to survive. So I want to see more entrepreneurs step up and have that health that they need in order to make that happen.
Well, I mean, that's the main reason why I started Certifiably Unemployable. I mean, number one, it's my passion. I've been around entrepreneurs my entire life. It's what I love to do. And I agree that we need more people to have enough courage and enough self-worth in themselves to say, I can do it. I've got this idea. I've got this concept. I'm moving forward. However, they also have to enter that new business with the right mindset, so they remain excited and they don't burn out, because you don't want to be part of that. What is it? 72%? You said 72% of entrepreneurs report having mental health concerns. You told me that earlier before. So, things like that we don't like to hear. So that's why we want to, I guess, take inventory, take caution, and handle things accordingly.
Yeah. And so, part of the reason why you brought me on here was to talk about that other side. What's necessary for an entrepreneur to move past that burnout phase? What's necessary to not experience the depression? I mean, one of the stats there is that founders of something, an entrepreneur, a founder of something is 30% more likely to experience depression than just your average American. That's because of the passion. It's the passion that drives entrepreneurs to do more, to be more, to not be satisfied with what I would call right? Not be satisfied, because you want to be bigger, you want to be better, you want to be stronger, you want to have more, right? There's that that's within us, and so I've been working, and part of my research and part of my passion is to help these incredible heroes of our economies, these incredible heroes of our communities, to continue that passion as long as God gives them the ability to do so. Whether or not you're a religious person, whether or not you believe in a higher being or a higher calling, the bottom line is that humanity can drive itself to death. And if we're not careful, then we're just gonna. I mean, I'm known for saying I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? And that is a horrible, horrible saying for me because I'm going to get to the dead part a lot faster if I don't take some breaks, if I don't pull back and do something what in the academic world we call recovery. Mm-hmm. Now we know recovery in all kinds of worlds, right? We know recovery in the addiction world. We hear about Alcoholics Anonymous. We hear about Narcotics Anonymous, and we hear about the need to recover and recovery movement that is in there. And it has that same principle. There was a psychoanalyst back many years ago in the 50s who first used the term burnout to describe a building that was on fire and unable to do anything. And so there's this inner feeling within us that we think that we can't put out the fire that's within us. And so we start to burn out is how that works. Right. So recovery challenges us to recognize the burnout, to not be ashamed that we're burned out. See, so that's the first step right there. Not be ashamed that we are experiencing burnout, and then to do what's necessary to move from the burnout into what some people would call a restored state of positive experience. And that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get back to restoration.
Yeah, I had made a note here because when you talked about passion and you talk about how entrepreneurs have the breakdown and founders are 30% more likely to have depression than a general member of the public. I believe that is so true because a lot of entrepreneurs, and many people I think on the outside might think that an entrepreneur is a selfish person, but an entrepreneur, in my experience, is very selfless because they have not only themselves to worry about, their family, their employees, their customers. So it adds so much pressure to their daily lives because they're like, if I don't perform, I'm not just letting myself down. They have the saying, if you're on an airplane, the oxygen mask falls, you put yours on so you can assist someone else then. So you got to take care of yourself first. But a lot of entrepreneurs, because they're moving so fast and they're so passionate, they don't think like that. And so that's where the breakdown happens. That's what I believe.
Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. And I don't think it should be an either or. I don't think you should take care of somebody else first before you take care of yourself. And I don't think you should take care of yourself first before you take care of somebody else. But we do know this, hurting people hurt people. So broken people just provide more brokenness, and burned out people are just going to provide more burned out. So if you aren't taking care of yourself, there's no way for you to be able to take care of anyone else.
Right, exactly.
And so you're exactly right on that. And so this just goes back to why it's so important for us to take a break. And that's what we would call these recovery activities. And here's going to be the hardest thing for you and your listeners and for me to understand is that my refusal to take a break is because my pride says that I have to be the one who's in charge all the time.
Yeah.
And that's it. And there's a refusal right there, right? So I'm not even, let's just talk about the mental attitude that it takes to move past having to constantly work. And let's start thinking about what it means to take a break. To take a break means that I am resisting something. So I have to first resist this idea that if I don't make that phone call, if I don't order that widget, if I don't think of the next step that needs to happen, if I don't, make that list, go down that list, if I don't do something, then everything falls apart. And I say this with all respect to every one of your listeners out there, you are not that important. You are more important to ensuring the success of your company than you are to constantly being worked. Because if you're constantly worked, you'll get burned out and your company will not succeed. There's just a promise on that one. The evidence is out there. So let's get past this idea that you are the cream of the crop, most awesome person ever, because, humanity is humanity. We may be uniquely us, but we're not unique. Everybody has the same type of things going on. It's just unique to our situation. So if we can get past that pride, if we can resist this idea that we are constantly having to be in charge, it frees us to take the break necessary to restore us to a positive state so that we can be better for the exact next thing. I mean, as soon as this comes out of my mouth, I know that there are going to be people out there going, what are you talking about? If I don't do this, if I don't do, I promise, try it once. And try it in small increments. Take a small moment. Don't even take a large. Take an hour, 2 hours, whatever that, and don't do anything work related. And then come back to your work after 2 hours and find out if it all fell apart. I promise you it didn't.
It's something so simple, Jack, I believe, is just putting your phone away for 3 hours, not looking at it,
right?
Saying, well, I can answer those messages later. I know that has been a challenge for me over the years.
Right.
Because I've always been the horsepower behind what's happening. And that's where you just have to rely on people. You have to delegate and you have to do all those things because you're right. You're at the end of the day, you're not the most important piece to the puzzle. It's the end result.
Right. And maybe I want to step back a little bit from what I said about you're not the most important piece. You are incredibly important and you are the most important piece to your company, but you are not the only one working there or even if you're a solo entrepreneur, you don't have everything necessary for it to succeed. So let's put it right there. There are other strengths and areas where you're going to have to find other people to handle stuff. So one of those things that I would step back from, right? And I would say, here's where we need to stop. I am horrible when it comes to administrative details type of thing. I'm not good at that. That is not who I am. I would probably argue that most high level leaders, most visionary type of leaders, they struggle with the details. So I've had to learn that no matter how much time I spend on the administrative, how much time I spend on the detail stuff, I'm never going to accomplish it as well as it could be accomplished. So I'm going to shop that stuff out. I'm going to make sure that somebody else handles it. That may be involving in my setting, maybe involving getting a volunteer that handles stuff like that, or hiring an assistant to do stuff like that, or even outsourcing it to the companies that have people who do stuff like that. And as an entrepreneur in any business, I really recommend you outsource the silly things, the stuff that doesn't add to your innovation, so that you can take a break from these other things. So that'd be one of my starts. But getting past that mindset that you have to do everything, that's going to help break open this idea of taking a break. And as you talked about, putting your phone away for 3 hours, that's a good start. The research tells us that unless we psychologically detach, which means that we're not thinking about work, unless we psychologically detach the night before we have to go back into work, then we are not ready for the next workday. So the research is telling us that the more we're able to psychologically detach or switch off our brain the night before, the more productive and the more proactive behavior we have during the next workday. So putting your phone away for 3 hours from 3 to 6, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But I'm going to keep pushing, and I'm going to say, turn your brain off. Decide at some point at night before you go to bed, I'm not thinking about work anymore. I'm not going to engage in work stuff. I'm not going to talk to my wife. I'm not going to talk to my kids, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, whatever it might be. I'm just not going to engage in work anymore. And I'm going to detach from that so that when I wake up the next morning, I'm refreshed. And I have found in my own personal life that when I do that, I wake up the next morning with more innovation ready than I did when I went to bed. So I'm ready to think about the next day a lot better when it comes to that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That's a great concept because it's not easy as an entrepreneur. There was a point that I was thinking, one of the things that hit me when you were just talking, Jack, is that as a leader and as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to identify your weaknesses.
All right, hold on. Let's stop right there. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you too much, but I want to make it clear. Entrepreneurs are leaders.
Right.
I want to make that abundantly clear. I know sometimes we just think of them as business people who started a business. They are leaders in our communities. They're leaders in the economy. They're leaders in this world. So anyway, let's keep going. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Not a problem at all. You have to identify your weaknesses, because if you don't, then you're just going to fake it till you make it on certain things of your business. And that's not good either.
No, and you can't identify your weaknesses if you're not taking time for yourself to go, all right, I gotta breathe here for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, Sean, think about this. There are multiple things you need to do throughout the day. And if we did not take a break from those things, when do we think we're ever going to have time for any form of critical thinking, for any form of reflection, for any form of a 360-degree feedback, for any form of just understanding who we are? Your self-awareness is so important to being a leader. And so you're exactly right.
You know, one of my previous guests had said something about, you know, he had used the example of 9 times out of 10, when you think of things that are innovative, that you're like, oh, I wish I had a pen to write it down. It's when you're driving, when you're in the shower, because now you've freed up some brain space. And so now you're like, where did this idea come from? I'm brilliant. I'm the smartest man alive. You know, so it reminds me of that same thing.
But that's what this whole idea of recovery, you know, that ties right into this idea of recovery, because when you're in the car, you're on a break. I mean, yes, we've gotten good at, you know, doing Bluetooth and cell phones and all that kind of stuff, and we can make phone calls and that kind of thing. And we're, you know, most entrepreneurs are semi good at texting and driving at the same time. But that's I mean, that's one area right there, right?
Right.
When you're in the shower, it's impossible. There is no way to engage with your work while you are in the shower. And it's just so you're automatically, those are built-in recovery times. And here's what's going to happen is that if we don't build in a real recovery time, that shower becomes a place for you to do critical thinking about your job rather than a place for you to relax and be refreshed.
Right.
And so
makes sense.
And so we have to continue to have those built-in recovery times, because you're so right. I mean, those moments, that's when you have it all. And what good does it do you? What good does it do you to come up with a great idea when you're soaking wet? Unless you have a recorder somewhere that you can push a button and be like, hey, I got this great idea. It happens to me all the time. I come up with incredible lines for my sermons in the shower. I mean, just some great lines that I have forgotten by the time I've dried off my butt. I mean, that's just the way it happens. And so, you know, you're right. We got to get out of that shower mindset.
Yep. So what factors are most likely to lead for the burnout, you know, or what factors are most likely to lead for an entrepreneur to have a burnout? And how do they know it's even happening, Jack?
Yeah. You know it's happening when you ask the question, do I have to do this? And I mean, that's one of those feelings when you have that feeling of, man, do I have to do this?
Yeah.
And like a week ago or even 2 days ago, you were like, I can't wait to do this. So I know for me, I really love my job. I love what I do. I am passionate about being a spiritual mentor, a guide. I'm passionate about pastoring my congregation. I'm passionate about all of those type of things. And I wake up in the morning excited to do what I'm doing. So in the organizational leadership structure, we would go back to something called calling. I know my calling. I know that I was called to be this type of person. And so I get passionate every morning. I wake up and I'm passionate. I'll be honest with you. There are mornings where I go, maybe I should be working at Walmart, right? Because I've lost that passion, because I'm burned out and I'm frustrated. As your listeners, as the people who are entrepreneurs, business leaders, as your business continues to grow, you have to deal with people, don't you? And as you have to deal with those people, you struggle with the frustration of those people's ideas and those people's thoughts and those people's concerns and complaints and truly casting vision Vision leaks. It leaks the moment you let it out of your mouth. And the next person who hears it does not hear it the way you understand it. So as you're trying to share that vision, creates more of that frustration. And so as you're dealing with those people, you're getting that frustration. And some mornings you're going to wake up and go, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's the moment you have realized that burnout has set in, is because you don't want to do this anymore. That's when you have to take a break, because you're not done at that point. That's when you noticed it.
Right.
That's when you have to take the break. And I truly, what I would recommend, at that point, you're taking a day off. You're saying, I'm putting this all aside for a day. Company's not going to go down. Am I going to miss a few leads? You're probably going to miss a few leads. Am I going to not make a couple sales? You're probably not going to make a couple sales. But in the long run, making those 2 sales on that day that you should have been taking a break is only going to defeat the purpose of your company. Whereas if you took the break, you can come back ready for the better sales. I often tell people, and I tell those, don't settle for good when great is on its way. And so don't just get those sales. Don't just take those leads because, hey, I got to keep doing this. When you need the break so that you can get what's better, so that you can get the great things that are in store for you, so that your company can just thrive and go where it's supposed to go. So that's how you begin to notice it. Where I would say that the factors that lead to burnout is the very factor that caused you to want to start that business in the first place. The very factor that caused you to want to be a pastor, to innovate, to do nonprofit work. And that's passion. Right? This passion that's built in me, this passion that's built in you, it is a double-edged sword. And that passion will continue to drive and move you until you don't stop. So you have to be able to, you've got to be able to negotiate with that passion. And that's not an easy process. It's not the same for everybody. Some recovery activities involve doing like a mastery experience. And when I say mastery experience, so I'm a pastor. Let's just throw that out there. I needed to take a break and I needed to figure out something. I needed a recovery activity that would help me just have that break from what I needed to do. And so I went and took bartending classes because I just thought it would be cool. I thought it'd be cool to learn how to mix stuff. I thought it'd be cool to learn how to be a bartender. And let's be quite honest, is there much a difference between a bartender and a pastor? I mean, they both listen to everybody and they both, give advice and they both, have their own right? So anyway, let's move on.
They listen to problems, they have advice, they make everybody feel better. Right.
Yeah. See, that's right. So, but that was more of a recovery activity for me. And so learning mixology, learning the craft, the trade craft of a bartender, that just brought some recovery to me. Other things for me have been scuba diving. Honestly, going on a cruise, a cruise is a recovery activity for me. This whole COVID thing interrupted a very important cruise that is built into my schedule that allows me to just go by myself and recover and not be around anybody else, not think about the fact, because again, I'm getting my PhD. So there's added work there. I'm a dad of 3 daughters. I've been married almost 21 years. I'll be married 21 years on September 18th. I am a full-time pastor. I also volunteer at different levels. I'm a busy guy. And so the cruise gives me that break where nobody else is around. I don't take my phone with me on that cruise. And so it's one of those type of things. So your passion is working against you and you need to negotiate with your passion. The other things that lead to burnout, and Gallup did a great research on this. Gallup will tell you that your job fit will lead to burnout, that if you're not in the right job, that's going to lead to burnout. Now, as an entrepreneur, we get to design our jobs a little bit. So you're almost okay there, but you will experience more burnout if you are not doing the right thing. So your passion may be for something, but you may not be approaching it the right way. And you won't know. The best example I can give you in my world is I get a lot of people sometimes that come to me and say, I'm passionate about music. I want to be on the music team. And I look at them and I go, great. Will you please sing a few lines for me? And they can't sing a lick. They can't They sound like a cat being stripped of all of its fur. They can't play any instruments. They can't do any. They may be incredibly passionate about music, which I believe they are, but they should never, ever be in the position of a singer or an instrumentalist or of an artist.
Right.
So we have to find the right fit for them. So your passion as an entrepreneur, it may be great. You got to find the right fit for that. Most entrepreneurs, that happens naturally because we design our own jobs, but just make sure that that's there. The other reason for burnout that might happen is because you are working in an environment that is not conducive to providing you those breaks that you need. Again, entrepreneurs tend to work by themselves. So I will tell you, loneliness is a problem. And entrepreneurs are some of the loneliest people in the world. And I know this because pastors are some of the loneliest people in the world. We don't get the opportunity to bounce ideas off of people, to engage with others, to have that camaraderie that many other people get. And that's mostly because nobody quite understands entrepreneurs. Because all they want to do is come up with the next great idea. And so they keep talking and they keep talking. And eventually non-entrepreneurs, non-leaders start to go, okay, that's great. Can we talk about football now? Right. So that's how it kind of really goes. And so it's a lonely
I can relate
world.
to that. I can relate to that.
Yeah. See, so it's a lonely world for us because we are in one of that level of leadership that just most people are not. Entrepreneurs, they make up a very small segment of our population. And then I would add, and we can expand on this all you want, Sean, but I would add that the last thing was the culture of American consumerism is driving you to burnout. And we are a very never stop culture and always on. I mean, we talk about the city that never sleeps. And we talk about the idea that you can be connected 24/7. We are one of the few cultures in the world that are like that. Even if you go, and especially in the Western world, right? Even if you go over to Europe, they require holidays, vacations, right? They require that of their employees. There are some countries in Europe that just demand that you take Fridays off. It's a 4-day work week. Now they work 40 hours in that 4-day work week, but they demand you take that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off because they know the importance of recovery. The American culture doesn't understand that. Capitalism is a fantastic thing. Every country should have capitalism. It is one of the most amazing economic structures in the world. Yet capitalism is killing our leaders. And so because we have to get the next sale, because we have to get the next lead, so we're on the phone at 3 a.m. in the morning because we need that next sale. And so those are some of the factors. I mean, there's many more. If you want to get into your personal life, there are definitely factors that add to burnout from your personal life. There are factors of the fact that we just don't take care of ourselves holistically. And this is where I would probably step in as a pastor and say, hey, whether or not you believe in God, whether or not you believe in some kind of higher being, the truth of the matter is we don't know everything there is to know. So why don't we just discover some stuff? And why don't we just explore some things? Let's let curiosity. And as entrepreneurs, we should be curious. Yeah, we should be curious people as entrepreneurs that want to know more about who we are and the nature of humanity and all that kind of stuff.
So this is a great opportunity for the viewers and listeners to make a comment. Let Jack and myself know what you do to have that recovery time outside of the shower, because you want to get beyond that, because I would hope that you're showering at least once a day, so you naturally have that built in. You know, one of the things when I was in the event business and I had taken, some training, I had always been a person that wanted to, continue education and continue to get better and better and better in business. And I was very passionate about the event business for a long time. And it got to the point to where I was working 7 days a week. And I was at a training session one time and I said, I just can't seem to disconnect, because if I'm off on Wednesday, my phone is still ringing because everybody there is like, well, Sean, I need this, Sean, I need that. He said, what you need to tell your employees If you take Wednesday off, you say, my phone better not ring unless this place is burning down. If this place is burning down, then you call me. Otherwise, it will not ring.
Yeah.
And you know what? That forced everybody to say, well, we can handle it without Sean. And if not, it'll take care of itself on Thursday when he gets back. But that helped me tremendously, tremendously.
So I have a rule with my staff, similar to your rule, and my staff knows not to call or text me on a day off that I have, and so they know not to do that. And that if they do, I'm going to answer my phone because it's the staff, and because the assumption is there is something incredibly wrong that needs my immediate attention. So they understand that. The congregation knows I have days off. So now we're talking about the 400 plus people that are involved in want my attention too. They know I have a day off, but they don't always know when it is because, I mean, let's be honest, how often does a congregational member think about their pastor's work schedule? That's just not in their heads. So they may call me and I have informed the congregation, you're welcome to call me anytime. You can text me anytime. If it's one of my days off, then I will let it go to voicemail or I will just ignore the text unless I see that it's an emergency, right? Because I don't want a congregational member whose mother is dying to think I'm not going to come and be a part of that. So as an entrepreneur, there are things in your business that you have to take care of that will be emergency type of things that you're going to have to address. But it's okay if you let calls go to voicemail and then you check the voicemail. And if the voicemail if it's not an emergency, great. You don't have to worry about that. But Sean, let me throw a question back to you on this one. I think that's great for us to say in the settings that I'm in, that I have a staff who can take care of things. There might be a business with 3 or 4 other employees, or maybe 15 or 20, it doesn't matter. What do you say to that solo entrepreneur who if they take a break, they miss a day's worth of phone calls? From your perspective, how is recovery going to help them the next day?
Me personally, when I first started the event business, we had a DJ business and I was the only DJ. So naturally I did all the events. I did all the preparation. I met with all the brides, all the grooms. And I think at that time, I was so excited about the fact that I was able to fire my boss. I was able to do things full time, that kept me going. But I would even unplug at the end of the evenings. And typically it was late at night because especially when I was working weddings and things, and I would get done at 1 o'clock in the morning, I would just unplug, whether it be with video games, play a couple of games of baseball or football and just watch a movie or something. But it was a lot different then because I was so new to the business that my passion was fresh. And it was one of those things where I had a conversation with my wife and I'm like, I'm going to work hard because I'm tired of doing that other job. I can't do that anymore. So this is going to be, crazy times, long hours, and that's just the way it's going to be. But I also found that my wife was getting more involved in my business because she saw how passionate I was, how hard I was working at it. And so that helped the recovery inside itself because now it wasn't just me doing it. I had a spouse who was supportive and that worked through it. And that really led us to a very successful business.
Your examples there that bring up some great points about recovery, and a few things that we have to remember. Number one, recovery is specific for the individual. So what works for you is not going to work for me. Probably going on a cruise may not work for everybody, right? That might not be their idea of recovery. And so you talked about playing video games. I just did a research project, and I was interviewing a pastor friend of mine, and I was interviewing him for this project, for this research. And he said, I do something that most people would consider to be a waste of time on Sunday afternoons, that my congregation would say is a waste of time. And that's on Sunday afternoons. I play FIFA soccer on the PlayStation 3 for 5 hours. And I spend my fake money on my fake players and I build my fake team and I have a fantastic time doing it. And And it would be considered a complete waste of time to anybody. Like if you asked people, is this a good idea that he does this? They would be like, it's probably a waste of time, right? Just because somebody else considers it a waste of time doesn't mean that it is a waste of time. And
Right.
so you brought some of those ideas up that are in there. And I think that's so important. Your recovery activity is specific to you. Find those things that allow you to have that psychological detachment, to not think about work for a while. And so it's specific to you. Second thing you brought up is there are seasons. Every entrepreneur faces a season, and some seasons you're going to have to work harder and longer than in other seasons. So even as a pastor, I'm experiencing this right now. COVID changed everything for us. And as a pastor, I worked 3 times as hard and 3 times as much during the outbreak, and I'm still working that schedule. It's getting a little easier, but I went from having time off to working constantly to now having to be online constantly. I mean, this is a whole new world for some of us. And so I'm working 3 times as hard, but I understand this is a season. And so when the season ends, I will be sure that I provide some added benefits into my recovery. So that may be when the season ends, when I'm able to take more of an extended break. It may be something like a sabbatical. It may be something like an extended vacation. It may be whatever that might be. So that's another thing. And you bring up a great point. In your first year, you might have to work a lot harder than you thought you did. And you might have to put a whole lot more time into that business. In your first and second year, you still need to build in some of those recovery times, even if they're brief. But recognize you might not be able to have that full vacation. You might not be able to have, whatever there might be. And your last thing, you brought up your wife. And this was a great analogy in my last research that somebody gave me, is that when they were a solo pastor, their family was integrated into every part of the congregation, like their wife, their children. If not for them, there would be no success in the congregation. This person left his solo pastorate to become a associate pastor or to be on staff at another congregation, to be an employee of another congregation. And he said, in the moment that happened, I was no longer responsible for everything about that congregation. And so my wife didn't have to sing on the worship team. My kids didn't have to be involved in this. And so we no longer had to engage them into my work schedule. And he goes, and that provided me more recovery opportunities at home, because I could come home and not just talk about work all the time. So as an entrepreneur that you're just beginning, and if you have a family or if you have friends or whoever partners, that you might be constantly engaged with them in the very beginning of that. But as that grows, make sure you switch off that engagement. Make sure there's a way to pull them out. Family businesses, I've just started some research on this. Family businesses have trouble distinguishing the professional life and the private life. And if you can't distinguish the two, you're not going to be able to find recovery in your private life. And so that's why I'm starting the research on this. So yeah.
No, it's great. There's an episode we had a week or two ago on balance with a good friend of mine, Richard Ireland. And so I encourage everybody that's listening to this to reference back to that particular episode. And he gives real life story of how being an entrepreneur, working too much, not having any balance, ruined his marriage, which now he's been able to heal it and everything else. So it's a very good episode and a lot of great lessons there. So I would encourage everybody to reference that back.
Sean, the balance stuff there, I mean, this is great. One thing that was taught to me as I was growing in my leadership is that every part of your life is demanding 100% of you. Right? Would you agree that your job demands 100% of you? Your friends demand 100% of you. Your hobbies demand 100%. Your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, all of that. They demand 100% of you. And so one of my favorite sayings that somebody said once was, "You're gonna have to cheat somewhere." So who are you willing to cheat on? And so what that did for me is it allowed that balance to happen. So it allowed me to say to my job, hey, I need to spend time with my wife, so I am not giving you 100%. I'm going to cheat on you with my wife. Or it allowed me to say to my wife, right now, I'm in a season. I've got to give more to the job. I need to cheat on you. And obviously, we don't use those terms, but that's I need to cheat on you in order to give this to my job. And so I think that we have to think in those terms because balance is a great term, but the need for recovery is because we will never really experience the balance that we desire. And I'm not taking anything away from what your friend said or what the other person said, because I agree there has to be that balance. But I would write those words as holistic life, right? A holistic view of my life. And so, yeah.
Well, he even said as well, their business with the family and everything else, even with the balance, they have the season coming up, like from now until the end of the year. They are going to have to really bear down and just put it in, because that's the way the business works.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what allowed, I believe, us to be in the event business for so long, because summertime, when it's hot here in Florida, nobody wants to get married, have a wedding, have an outdoor event. So once we realized that was how the business worked, we relied on times like that to kick back, go on vacation, and just recharge our batteries, because there was nothing else to do. So we were forced to do that, which was good.
Yeah. 100%. Can you do me a favor? Can you tell all of your listeners out there that summertime is the worst time to have an outdoor wedding at the beach? I'm just please let all your listeners know that. It is
as a pastor, as an officiant, that is difficult. So yes. Please listen to Jack. Please listen, because I have officiated many, many weddings in the past, and you're right, it's hot.
Yeah.
Especially in Florida. So yes. Jack, we really appreciate you being on our show. So before we wrap it up, I want you to see if you can maybe give somebody that's listening, maybe they're struggling, they feel that things are not going the way they wanted to, and they don't want to break. So are there some maybe simple tips, simple tricks, simple things that anybody can do outside of the shower thing? Anything anybody can do to help with that?
Yeah. Find a hobby that doesn't relate back to your job. New research is coming out saying that creative activities, and this is going to sound silly coming from an adult, coloring. I know that was a big thing for older adults. I mean, painting, doing something creative, that builds these recovery activities into, and it gets your mind back into re-engaging. I mean, neuroscience is telling us if we just spend 15 minutes a day in meditation, we can revert our minds back to a 25-year-old mind. And I mean, right there, you want a simple thing? Take 15 minutes, turn everything off, go somewhere where you're not going to get any distractions, and sit there and just, and meditate's this weird spiritual word. It basically means just to sit there and allow your thoughts to relax. That's all it boils down to. And neuroscience tells us you do that, you get a mind of a 25-year-old. And I know all of us wish we had the mind of a 25-year-old, because that's where entrepreneurship really begins. That's where we have that creative thinking. So those would be two things I would think of. Get creative.
That's great advice.
Yeah. Do the meditation. The third one I would say, and I don't know if I can get a little bit into my area on this one.
Sure.
I would say do something we call Sabbath. And Sabbath is a reminder to us that there is somebody else in charge. And so in my world, in the Christian worldview of that, it's a reminder that God created all things, that he is in charge of us, that he loves us so much that he wants us to take a break, and he wants us to not be so involved in trying and coerced into producing and coerced and having that anxiety. He doesn't want any of that. So pull back from the Christian worldview perspective that I just gave you, and just the idea of a break, a Sabbath, is to remind us that we are called to be healthy people. We're called to be a healthy humanity. And so a practical thing on that Sabbath thing is, again, kind of what Sean had talked about with turning your cell phone off for 3 hours or so. But I really encourage you, find that day that you're just going to say, I'm not doing anything. We call it a day of divine nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that divineness, that divinity that just recharges us for the next day.
Listen, you can go out, play 18 holes of golf and spend 4 hours on the golf course, and you can leave your phone in the vehicle. You can have your phone, put it in airplane mode, put it on Wi-Fi, go to YouTube and watch 30 minutes of whatever type of video you want to watch.
Right.
I mean, especially in today's day, there's so many simple things that we can do, even if it's you focusing on personal development, listening to Zig Ziglar and Les Brown and different motivational speakers.
Oh, yeah.
I know stuff like that helps recharge my battery as well. So
I surf.
For the advice.
Surf is my divine nothingness. I mean, I love to get to the beach. I love to go surfing. Love to sit there. That's right. That's what it is. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, we appreciate you very much, Jack. And I know there's a lot more to talk about. So
so much more.
We're going to have to have another 4
hours on this. Yeah.
We're going to have to break up more topics. Good luck with your PhD. And
thank you.
And congratulations on all the positive things you have happened in your life. You got a beautiful wife, beautiful daughters. And if you see Jack's family photo at Christmas time, you're just going to applaud. And he gives all the credit to his wife. However, you're in the picture too, buddy, and you're a part of that. So,
well, Sean, thank you so much for having me on here. This has been an absolute privilege of mine. And so I am just so grateful and glad that you're helping our community and our heroes in our community, our leaders, to truly become the people that they're supposed to be.
My pleasure. I love it. It's a passion of mine. And thank you so much for being a part of Certifiably Unemployable. So don't forget, if you hear something that resonates with you, leave a comment. And if you need me to ask any particular questions to Jack, I'll get you connected. Not a problem. Share this episode with somebody you feel that can that this can really help. And don't forget to subscribe. There you go. So you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for joining us on Certifiably Unemployable. Until next time.
You've been listening to Certifiably Unemployable. Ready to fire the boss yet? You're on your way. Sean has been self-employed for over 20 years. So if that's something that you want to do, something you've been dreaming about for years, Sean has all the knowledge, good, bad, and indifferent. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook and Instagram at Certifiably Unemployable. Find us on YouTube and at www.certifiablyunemployable.com. Till next time, this is Certifiably Unemployable, signing off.